Welcome everyone to another session on current affairs by Civils360 Academy. In this session, we will be discussing in detail about G20 and the 2025 summit. It was the 20th summit. It was held at Johannesburg, South Africa. So G20 is a very important topic, especially for UPSC Prelims, because it has been asked for 3 times. So please study G20 in detail, especially at this summit, because US under Trump had actually withdrawn. They only sent a diplomat, but still the summit went through. It actually adopted a declaration, and it was a pretty detailed declaration. It contained many concerns of the global South nations, and so a lot of declarations, a lot of important documents, targets were revised regarding climate change, regarding even employment, regarding many issues that is faced by Africa. Mainly, it also talked about reforms that should be made part of the UNSC. So we will look into all those things. We will be focusing especially on the Johannesburg Summit, 2025 Summit. So please remember, it was the 20th Summit. Please remember that it was at South Africa. So let's go into the details. Right. So the first important point is that it was held on the November 22 and 23 at the Johannesburg Expo Center in South Africa. So to start off with, please understand G20, which are the members of G20, when it was established. Concepts like these are very important. So, to just give a background, like I said before, whenever you study international organization, you should know the structure of the organization, the mandate of the organization, why it was formed, what it does, okay? Whether it's a formal institution with its own permanent secretariat. So, these are the details you should know. So, talking about G20, it was actually established in So it was actually established in 1999. That's the first important point. Remember the background of which it was created. It was created in the background of the Asian financial crisis of 1997 and 1998, where many capital outflows happened from Thailand, Indonesia, all those Southeast Asian countries. Their currency depreciated, their stock market crashed. Those issues, please keep those issues in background in your back of the mind. So that is the context, the background in which this group was actually created. But annual meetings were conducted after the global financial crisis of 2008. Okay, in fact, the first meeting was in 2008. It was conducted by Washington, US. Okay, so the first annual meeting started from 2008, but G20 was established in 1999. Okay, so please keep that idea in mind. So initially it was actually meetings of the central bank governors as well as the finance ministers. Okay, so their main mandate was to ensure financial stability across the world, to prevent the economic failures, to prevent slowdown of the economic crashes, and all. These were their important mandate. Okay, so now you have to know the members included in G20. So remember that there is one international. Now there are 2 regional organizations. African Union is also there, European Union also there. So that makes them 19 countries with 2 regional bodies. So please keep that information also in your head. So whenever you study these groupings, please try to remember them by continents, right? So for example, North America, you have Canada, US, Mexico is there. You go to South America, you have Argentina is there, Brazil is there. Then you move to Europe, where you have UK, France, Germany, Italy is also there. Then you move to the Arabian Peninsula, you have the Saudi Arabia. Africa, only South Africa is a member from the African continent. Turkey is there, and starting off from Asia. So study by continents. So it keeps them a mental image in your head so that you can recollect faster, right? So Russia is there, Japan, China, South Korea, India, Indonesia. Remember that in Southeast Asia you have only Indonesia. Then you have Australia, right? So New Zealand is not there. Countries like Scandinavian countries are not there. Iceland is not there, right? So please keep those kind of information in your mind. So please know that G20 accounts for about 85% of the global output, global GDP, 85%. International trade, they account for 75%. These facts are important for writing introduction in mains, right? Statistics, right? So please keep those kind of statistics in your mind. They amount to about 50% of the world population. All right, not 50%, 2/3 of the world population. 2/3 of the world population is actually in G20. Okay, so just understand certain terms, like for example, Sharpa is a term. Right, so G20 Sharpa, you might have seen in editorial, simply means a permanent, representative of a particular country to the G20, right? Permanent representative. That is what is called as a Sharpa. There is another name, Troika. Troika refers to a group of 3 countries, that is the present chairman or the present president of the G20 who hosts the summit, the previous year's president and the next year's president. So the group of 3 countries that actually conducts the G20, who conducted the G20 summit and who is going to conduct the leaders summit. So please understand these terms. Right, so this year South Africa is going to be the president. The next year it's going to be US. So basically after South Africa conducted the summit, it handed over the presidency to US. Last year, if you remember, it was Brazil, and before that it was New Delhi, it was India, right? So please remember the summit number as well, right? It was the 18th summit was in New Delhi 2023. 19th summit it was Brazil, and the 20th summit is South Africa, right, at Johannesburg 2025. So please remember those facts as well. So this was the symbol. So sometimes they may ask, this is actually the national flower of South Africa. It's called King Protea, right? UPSC may ask, King Protea is a type of, give 4 options, right? A flower, a king, a medieval king, they might ask. So something like that they may ask. So please remember, King Protea is actually a flower. It's actually the largest flower in its genus and the national flower of South Africa. The theme, solidarity, equality and sustainability. Please remember that as well. If you include all the other EU as well, you can understand that it consists of almost 79% of the global population to 84% of the global emissions as well. 84% of the global emissions. This is important because, so whenever a G20 actually takes decisions, it impacts the entire world, right? Because 85 or 84% of the global emissions are actually by these emissions, so by these countries. So if these countries say that we are going to cut down on our emissions, and they actually take a, hopefully they take a legally binding treaty, they form a legally binding treaty. It's a huge deal, right? That is why G20 is important, because it is a large chunk of the world is actually coming together and they are actually taking decisions. So it holds a lot of opportunities. So please understand that is the relevance of G20. Okay, so now moving on. Okay, next is, remember another important thing, G20 is actually an informal grouping. Please remember, it is an informal grouping. Okay, it's an informal grouping and it does not have a secretariat. It does not have a secretariat means it does not have a permanent secretariat. Okay, it also means it does not have a headquarters. So please remember, G20 does not have a charter, it does not have a permanent secretary, it is just an informal grouping and its main mandate is to ensure global financial stability. Okay, so this time it was held at Johannesburg. Okay, so now moving on to the different outcomes of the G20 summit. It's quite important. So whenever you study the outcomes, you need to know if there's any key declarations. Name of the key declarations are mentioned. Please learn that. Please also learn, unique terms. When you get curious regarding a particular term, please read upon it. Okay. So it was the first ever G20 that summit that happened on the African continent. And the theme, they actually gave the philosophy of Ubuntu, right? Ubuntu, and I am because we are. Okay, I am because we are. Essentially, it simply means my welfare, or I am like this. Okay, because we are all, like this. Or my welfare is interlinked with your welfare and our welfare. Okay, so it actually flows from our Vasudhaiva Kudumbakam, that philosophy, right? Essentially, that is the concept. Okay, so there is a commitment to multilateralism. Okay, multilateralism. Okay, second important point, the IMF Executive Board is there, which is essentially the board which actually decides to which country we are going to give loans, all those things. It is decided by IMF Executive Board. Till now there were like 24 members. Of that IMF, there were 5 permanent seats for members like US, for European countries and all. And for the other countries, there are 20 seats. Okay, 20 seats. The seats are actually decided on the basis of fund allocation, right? On the basis of allocation of quotas, right? So on the basis of the amount of quota a particular country contributes to the IMF, they get the voting power and they get the seat. So US is the largest contributor. It has 1 seat in the IMF Executive Board. Okay, just like that. So for these are 5 seats for 5 countries, that is mainly from the West. Then the 20 regional groups around the world elect 1 member. So the Sub-Saharan region, for the first time, is now going to get a representative in the IMF Executive Board. Sub-Saharan region exclusively means south of the Sahara. Okay, please keep that also in mind. South of the Sahara, right? So those countries there from that region will get a representative at the IMF. That decision was taken in the G20 Johannesburg Summit. That was the 25th member, 25th chair of the IMF Executive Board. Okay. Then there was also a special drawing rights which was actually created for the for the poor countries, for the developing countries, and 100 billion was accumulated through these special drawing rights. So a fund was created by IMF for these poor countries, and 100 billion had been achieved, and that's a great thing. And so that was actually transferred to a trust. And the name of the trust is Poverty Reduction and Growth Trust and the Resilience and Sustainability Trust. Okay, so special drawing rights is there. So the 100 billion was generated in the form of special drawing rights. It's a different topic, but please discuss upon it. Please read upon it. We will cover special drawing rights and all those financial instruments in common, other current affair classes. But please read upon special drawing rights. Just for your information, it is not a currency, it is just a claim on the IMF, right? It is a reserve asset, right? So the third important point was regarding debt sustainability. So a common framework, G20 common framework, was actually formulated in Riyadh in 2020. That was back in the 15th G20 summit. In Riyadh they actually created a G20 common framework. So essentially G20 common framework which was established along with the Paris Club, which is a group of creditor nations mainly from the West. Okay, Paris Club, it has 22 members. Okay, it is mainly a group of countries that actually give credit. It's a group of large credit giving countries. So Paris Club joined with the G20 to form the G20 common framework, which was to help countries to tackle the widening debt that they had accumulated after the pandemic. So that is a framework, and for these debt treatments, the G20 members, they reaffirmed this common framework and the idea behind it. The idea behind it is that they will not go full-fledged on recovering these debts. They will offer for debt for climate swaps, debt for development, all these flexible instruments they will be using. All these creditor countries will use flexible, will allow the developing countries to restructure their debt. That is the G20 common framework, and that was reaffirmed in the Johannesburg Summit. Then climate change. Regarding climate change, reaffirmed the Paris Agreement as well as the G20 voluntary high-level principles for investing in disaster risk reliance was formulated. So essentially, according to that, they say that the creditors or these countries will encourage investments in reducing the damage or reducing the risk posed by climate change to the developing countries, especially for special island developing states. Right, special island developing states. So again, this is another important grouping, special island developing states. It consists of 57 members across Pacific, across Indian Ocean, across the Caribbean, all those areas are there. So please read up on special island developing states as well. Okay, so the G20 reaffirmed that they will encourage, these countries are going to encourage investments into these countries to protect them from the impacts of climate change. So that is what's the relevance of the Johannesburg Summit, because they are actually now supporting or giving a voice to the issues of the global south, right? Climate finance, developing countries facing the increasing brunt of climate change. Okay, so that is, please understand that aspect as well, right? So it was noted that developing countries need at least 5.8 to 5.9 trillion US dollars before 2030 if they want to meet their national determined contributions target. So if you do not understand about the NDCs, please watch our other videos. Okay, regarding energy security, Mission 300 platform. Okay, Mission 300 platform was created. So Mission 300 platform, it's a initiative by the World Bank and the African Development Bank. They essentially try to provide energy security across Africa, right? So here some statistics are given, but simply understand that the target is to connect 300 million people to electricity in Africa by 2030. Okay. So that is why it's called Mission 300. 300 million Africans will be connected to electricity by 2030. So please keep that also in mind. Okay. Okay. So please read upon these, read the official document so that you have a better understanding. Okay. The next is regarding mineral security. Mineral security, obviously we know about critical minerals, how their supply is impacting, various global supply chains. Critical minerals are crucial for electronics, various items, right? So to ensure supply resilience for critical minerals, the G20 critical mineral framework is now, established. It's a voluntary non-binding blueprint. Okay, for secure, sustainable, transparent, stable and resilient. These keywords are important because they can help you for mains, right? So please understand the keywords. Secure, sustainable, these you can write as points, right? Secure, sustainable, transparent, stable and resilient critical minerals, right? And also critical minerals are supposed to, these countries will try to encourage critical minerals not just for export as raw materials but as a catalyst for value addition. So these countries are coming together and they are taking these decisions. Please understand that. Next is food security. The G20 Food Security Task Force has been established under South Africa itself. In Africa, this is actually across the world, 720 million people experienced hunger. So this food security is going to ensure or tackle food security by implementing the African Continental Free Trade Area, that agreement. The next is regarding AI. G20 Task Force on AI, Data Governance and Innovation, okay, was also, it is again under South Africa only. So that also has been launched. AI for Africa initiative was also launched. It's a multilateral, multi-stakeholder cooperation between G20 and AU. Okay, so it is through this initiative, AI for Africa initiative, AU and G20 will communicate regarding the issues of AI. Basically, they are trying to create an ethical, inclusive, multilateral, data secure AI, right, for the future. Next is regarding employment. So this is actually unique to kind of like a global south issue, employment. So you have Nelson Mandela Bay targets. UPSC can simply ask, Nelson Mandela Bay target is related to which of the following? Okay, so please understand Nelson Mandela Bay target. Nelson Mandela Bay is actually a municipality within South Africa. Nelson Mandela Bay target aims to reduce young people not in employment, not in education, not in training by 5%, by a further 5% by 2030 or 2024 levels. So please understand it is aiming to tackle unemployment. Similarly, Brisbane eThekwini is another municipality in South Africa. Brisbane is in Australia, and back in 2014, the G20 summit at Australia had given a Brisbane goal. The Brisbane goal in 2014 at the G20 9th summit actually gave another target. It aimed to reduce the gender gap in labor force participation by 25% by 2025. That was the initial target. Now it is by 2030. Okay, so please understand these key documents, key declarations, key targets, what it relates to, who formulated it, what are the targets. Okay, so please understand the target. Okay, so the Brisbane eThekwini goal aims to reduce the gender gap in labor force, okay, by 25% by 2030. Okay, the last commitment was to reform UNSC to make it more inclusive, to make it reflect the current reality, current world scenario. Okay, representative, inclusive, democratic and accountable. So these are the few commitments. So please understand the different declarations, different initiatives, and all those ideas. Okay. So I am talking about G20. I talked about G20, and I am pretty sure if you have gone through UPSC Prelims question papers, it has been asked almost 3 times, right? It is one of the rare topics that are asked repeatedly by UPSC, but each time they ask, it's kind of like a whole different information is required to solve it. So please study G20 effectively and thoroughly. It's no guarantee that they can ask, but it has been asked repeatedly. So this was the latest question in 2023. So these are the following consider the following statements regarding G20. G20 was originally established as a platform for the finance ministers and central bank governors to discuss international economic and financial issues. I remember, if you remember the background in which it was created, you can easily crack it. Okay, because you know that the Asian financial crisis, it was established in 1999. If you know at least that bit, you can say this is right. Although this is a deeper information. Digital public infrastructure is one of India's G20 priorities. It was held, this was in 2023, right? So it was at that time G20 summit was there. But still you can guess. Digital public infrastructure is obviously something India is trying to give to the world, right? So it will be one of India's G20 priorities. So you will reach both 1 and 2. Okay, this is another important question. Consider the following statements regarding G20. G20 was established in response to the global financial crisis of 2008. I just said that it was actually established in 1999, right? So this statement is wrong. But if you have partial information, you might think this is correct. If you know that G20 aims for financial stability across the world, maybe you would think that this is logically correct. That is why study thoroughly, right? It was established in 1999. African Union became a permanent member of the G20 at the New Delhi summit. Yes. Okay. They might ask another question. The Johannesburg Summit was the first summit after AU became a G20 member. It's wrong. It was Brazil, right? In between, you had 18th summit in New Delhi where AU became a member. In 19th summit, you had in Brazil. So 19th summit was actually the summit in which AU had actually participated completely after it became a member. Okay, so please be careful. African Union became a permanent member at New Delhi summit. It is correct. 2025 G20 Johannesburg Summit adopted a multi-point declaration emphasizing climate finance. Okay, remember climate finance? That was also mentioned, right, regarding the targets that these countries needs to be met. The countries actually came together to invest in disaster risk resilience, right, for reducing the risk to developing countries. Global debt reform, a reaffirmed commitment to the G20 common framework, and development cooperation. Okay, so these are all broader contexts. You can say that there is a high probability that these things will be focused upon by the declaration, right? Somewhere it would be there. So please learn to judge statements like this, okay? Because when you read editorials repeatedly, you will get an understanding that, obviously this is correct, right? But if you look at the documents, you can say it specifically. But then again, this is actually correct, right? So you will reach only 2. So that was from this session. Please read about G20 Johannesburg Summit. Read multiple sources. Prepare key terms and declarations. Understand the theme, the background of G20. It's very important for your prelims as well as mains. Okay, so that's all from this session on current affairs. Thank you.